Welcome to this PHP tutorial. So mostly here we're going to be focused on backend code. It's going to be a two-part series. The first part we are going to handle how a person can create a registration form using HTML, PHP, and we're going to be using my SQL as the database of choice. After this, we're going to now write code so that we can be able to log in into the registration that we just did. So without further ado, the first thing that you're going to need is you're going to need a server. So the server is going to allow us to make HTTP requests, and it's going to allow us to be able to communicate with our database. So because we're using PHP, I recommend that we either use WAMP or XAMPP. So XAMPP or WAMP is going to provide us with an Apache server, and it also comes with SQL database. That means we can be able to design a database with this graphical user interface. As you can see right now on my screen, we have PHP my admin. So this is the database. This is basically the interface for the SQL database that we're going to use. So first things first, you need to download XAMPP. After you download XAMPP and you install it, it's going to grace you with an interface where you're going to be able to see Apache. So that's going to be the Apache server. You're going to be able to see MySQL. So you'll have to start these servers separately, but then they'll be able to communicate. So before you design anything, especially with SQL databases, you need to know how the relationships within your server are going to work. For example, here we are going to create a new database. So I'm going to press new. After pressing new, we're going to give this database a name. So for example, because we're just trying here, we can just call this database user. So we're just going to call it user, and we're going to hit create. So it's going to process our request. You should also know that you can create this database using SQL commands if you're comfortable with that, but I'll just use the graphical interface because it's much easier. So we're just going to create a table. So the first table that we're going to create, we're just going to call it user, for example, user details. That's going to be the first table. It's going to have, we're going to use the, for registration, we're going to have the person input the first name, the last name, their password, and email. So basically, first name, last name, email, and password. First name, last name, email, and password. So we're just going to have 5 columns here, and we're going to create this. After creating this, just wait a little for it to load. After creating this, we'll have to now name the attributes. So because in databases, everything needs its own unique ID. So we're going to create an ID right here. So this is going to be the primary key. So we're going to turn on AI comments. So that's going to allow us to name this as the primary key. So we're going to have the first name, the first, sorry for that, the first name, and then we have the last name, and then we have email, the email, and then the password of the user, which they're going to use to log in. So we need to indicate data types for each one of these columns. So for example, because the first name is going to be a string, so we're just going to use a varchar for this, and we're going to give it the length of 255, which is basically most people just do that. The last name, we're going to do the same thing. It's going to be varchar, and it's going to be 255. The email is going to be the same thing, varchar. I hope you get the hint. 255. If you were using a passcode, if you're going to use a passcode for the passcode, you could have used numbers, but because we're using a password, it can be characters and numbers, and that's actually what we want because we want our passwords to be strong. we're going to use for our chart. And I'm going to also show you guys how to do validation, but that's going to be at a later video. So this is going to be 255. After that, we're going to save this. So we save this, we process a request, and after that, we have our user details. So there we go. We have user details in within the user database. So this is our table. So we're just going to use this table for now. So basically, this is just a introduction to uh, the SQL, but this is not what we're going to use. So we're just going to switch over to Virtual Studio Code. So basically, we need an IDE. So this is the code editor of a choice, at least for me. Other people can have their own code editors of choice, but this one is the one for me. So as you can see, this is the basically this is the introduction page of Visual Studio Code after you install it. So you can download Visual Studio Code. Just go on Google, on Bing, search VS Code exe, and you're going to go to the website. The same thing with XAMPP. So we're going to navigate into where XAMPP is installed. So I'm just going to do open folder. So we're going to go into this PC. We're going to go into local disk, and we're going to look for XAMPP. After looking for XAMPP, uh, local disk. After that, we're going to look for XAMPP. After looking for XAMPP, we're going to go into htdocs, and into htdocs, we're just going to create a folder, and we're just going to call it um, user, and that's it. And we're going to select the folder, and we're going to open that particular folder. After doing this, you should see we're within the user folder for XAMPP. So in here, we're just going to create we're just going to create an index.php. So we're going to say index.php. So whenever we start writing PHP code, the first thing that we normally do is we start with an angle bracket and then a question mark. Sorry for that. A question mark, and we say PHP. Then we close that off with a question mark. But that's not what we're going to do here. Here we want to create the form. So we're just going to start off with some boilerplate HTML. So basically, that's the boilerplate HTML. We're not going to make this anything fancy. We just want to create a simple registration form. So we're going to start off with the form tag, and then we're going to give it a method. So the method is going to equal to post. So this is going to be the post method. Post and action to where it's going to post to. We're just going to say that it's going to post to, for example, upload.php, and we're going to create this. So disregard the suggestions there. So we're going to start first of all with the first input. So we're going to start with the label, and then we're going to say that label uh, the label is going to be for the name. So we're going to say label for fname. Basically, it's just short for first name. So the label is going to equal to first name. After that, we're going to have an input. So for the input, we're going to have an input of type text. It's going to be of type text. The ID is going to be fname. Basically, the suggestions that have been given to us. So we have input type text. We have the ID fname, the name fname, and the value should not be there. So let's delete the value for now. We don't need it because the value is going to insert a default value for us that we don't want. So basically, remember the name and the ID. They all need to be fname. We need to remember. So always remember inputs for the either the name or the ID. Always remember that. Do not forget that. So after that, we're going to create another label. So this is going to be for the L name or the last name. So that's the label. So it's going to be label for L name. We're going to have the last name there appearing. After that, we're going to have another input of type text. So it's going to be input type text, and that's going to be for the L name. After that, we're going to have another label. So this label is going to be for email. It's going to be for email. So it's going to be email, and we're going to close that off. So it's going to be email, and this input is going to be of type email. So we're going to say input type, which is going to be type email, not text, but type email. So the reason why we use type email is because without even putting in some JavaScript whatsoever, it provides some validation for us. It checks for that at in the email. So that's just basic validation without even having to do anything at all. And after the email, we're going to want the person to input the password. So we're going to put another label here, and it's going to be for the password. So we're going to input password here. So that's it, and then it's going to be input. It's going to be of type password. The ID is going to be password. So it's better to just name things with their regular names. After this, we are going to have a button. I'm going to say button, and this button is going to be of type submit, and the name of the button is going to be submit. So after this, we've created a basic. Basically, we've created just a basic form that's going to help us. I forgot to close that off. Excuse me for that. I forgot to close this off. So it's going to be angle bracket forward form, and we've closed it off. So it's form, and we've closed it off. Better. So we've closed it off. So that was easy. That was very easy. Anyone can get that. Okay. So after this, what we're going to do is, uh, is it still recording? Okay. Sorry about that. I was just fixing my recording. It wasn't working. So after this, we're going to go to localhost. So let's just go to localhost. After going to localhost, we're going to do /, and we're going to go to user. So this should bring us our login that we made. So this is the login that we made. We've got the first name, we've got the last name, we've got the admin, and we've got the password. So after this, we're going to go to Virtual Studio Code, and we're going to create our, we said upload.php. So upload.php. So in here, what we're going to do is we're just going to start with the angle bracket. So we're going to say angle bracket forward question mark PHP, and we have this question mark. So that's how you start a PHP document, a PHP code execution, whatsoever what you want to call it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we need to create a connection to our database. So to create the connection to the database, we'll create a few variables. So we're going to start with $server name. So we're going to say $server name. We just start with capitalization there. $server name. After that, this will be assigned to the server name. So the server name is localhost, exactly. And then we're going to say $username. So the username is root. That's the username for our database. And then $password. So the password, we don't have a password. The password is blank. So that's the password. And dollar sign DB name. So I just like to call it DB name for database name. Sorry about that. DB. Just put it as dollar sign DB name. DB underscore name. So the database name is user. If you remember, so we have user. So after this, we have to create the connection. So we're going to say that dollar sign connection or connect con is going to be assigned to my SQL. So we use my SQLi underscore connect, or okay, we just use this method SQL dot underscore connect as it's suggested for us. So we use my SQL underscore connect. It's a function that takes in 4 arguments. It takes the server name, the username, the password, and the DB name, and then we have to check if the connection is successful or if the connection is not successful. So we can say that if does not connect. So if the connection is not successful, we will kill the connection. We will now bring up the message connection failed, and we're going to say that we're going to bring out the error that we faced. We can also put in an else statement here and say that else, for example, connection successful. So we can go here and try and submit. So you can see the connection was indeed successful. So the connection to the database was indeed successful. So this is the first thing. You need to connect to the database, and then you need to verify if the connection is correct. So I know you guys might not have a code suggester. I do have a code suggester on my PC. That's why you can see the suggestions. But this is the way that we deal about these situations. So we're going to now have to collect the input from the form. So we're going to say if, and we're not going to use the suggestions there. If, and then we're going to say that dollar sign underscore, and then we're going to write server in capital letters, and we're going to say this is going to take in the request method. So it's going to be underscore request method. So it's going to take in the request method, and then we're going to check that if this is a post, so we're going to say if request method and then post. So we're checking if it's a post request. After that, we're going to say that if indeed that is a post request, we are going to now create variables. So we're going to start with fname. So fname is going to equal to the super global array of post. So this is dollar sign underscore post, and then it takes in the argument the names that we had in the form. For example, this is fname, so it's going to take in fname. So we have fname right here. So it's going to take in the fname. After taking in the fname, we are going to take in the L name, not the cookie. Come on, the L name. If you want to also learn about cookies, you can also tell me. So just in the comments section down below. So we're going to take in the L name. After taking in the L name, we're going to take in the email. So basically, it's just the same thing. So we're using the super global array, and then just give it the variables and assign the variables to what you're getting. So we're going to get in the email. After getting in the email, we're going to get in the password. So after this, I'm going to teach you 2 ways of storing a password. So you can either use a hash, or you cannot use a hash. So what the hash does is it takes in the password, chews it up, and then spits it out. So basically what you're doing there is like you're taking a password and then you're just scrambling it. So for example, a password of 123 could be scrambled into 20 characters that don't make sense, because if someone does get access to our database, we don't want them to be able to find out what we have, to find out the password. So they can have access to a database, but they won't be able to they will not be able to access the user's account because they don't know the password. They have to figure out the hash, and figuring out a hash is very difficult, sometimes almost even impossible. So the first thing we're going to do is we're not going to use the hash method now. We're going to use it later. We're just going to create a statement to insert into the database. So we're going to say SQL we're not going to write that garbage this thing just wrote down because it doesn't make sense. So we're going to say SQL. Oh, it does make sense, but it's not what we want right now. SQL. So you need to know SQL statements for this process. So we're going to say insert into user, not user. What do we have? Let me check. In order not to confuse, insert into user details, not user. That's why I was saying it was garbage. It's user underscore details. So what are we inserting into user underscore details? We are inserting the, so we have to go from the database here. We have the first name, we have the last name, we have the email, we have the password. Remember, the ID is the primary key and it is auto inserted, so it is unique. It is generated by itself, by the database itself. So we have the first name, the last name, the email, and the password. So we'll start with the first name. So we're going to say insert into user. So we have what? We have the first name. We have the first name. We have the last name. Last name. Look at it, it's figured it out. We have the last name. We have the email. And we have the password. So basically, sometimes password comes out as I can say sort of like a function or something like that, but don't matter because you can see it's green, but there it's kind of blue. So what are we inserting into these? What are we inserting into these? We're inserting these values. So what are these values? These values are, first thing is the F name. So I'll just go along with that. It's done. We're inserting the F name, the L name, the email, and the what? And the password. Has it cut off? No, it's finished the query. Okay. So after this, we now have to check, has the query executed properly? So, okay, first of all, we have to execute the query. Sorry about that. We have to execute the query. After executing the query, we have to check, has the query executed? Has it not executed? If it has executed, it's supposed to give us a feedback. If it has not executed, it's supposed to give us a feedback. So basically, it's the code that is written there. So we're going to say if, and then we use the function MySQL query. So to execute the query, it takes in two things. It takes in the connection to the database and the query itself. So it's going to be MySQLi underscore query. So it's going to take in the connection to the database, which is the con variable. And I think I'll just finish this. The connection to the database, which is the connection we created here, and the SQL query itself. And then after that, we're going to echo out the words new record created successfully, and then we're going to redirect. But we don't want to redirect. Header location means header location index of PHP. That means after this query has executed perfectly, we're going to go back to index of PHP. But that's not what we want to do. So we're going to delete that for now. We don't need that. And then if it has not executed properly, we are going to echo error after that. So after this, after the query has executed properly, I think this should indeed work. So let us now try and have this inserted. So I'm just going to use these details. So you have download parent j admin, whatever. I don't know what the password is, but I'm going to submit it. And as you can see, new record has been inserted successfully. So if we go to the database and we reload the database, we are going to find that the details have indeed been inserted with the ID of 0. And if we try to insert another user, let's just use these ones. I'm sorry for these names. They're used for the other projects that I do. I'm going to use the same email. Let's just change an email. Let's use this. So submit this. So connected successfully, but we have an error. So we have a duplicate entry for primary key 0. Okay, that's a problem. But as we can see, we have the user has been inserted correctly into the database. Let's just delete this entry for now. Delete this entry for now. We will indeed fix that error, the error that we saw. We're going to fix it, but in the next, we're going to fix it, but in the next series. In the next series, the problem is the primary key. I think, if I'm not mistaken, is not being incremented automatically. But I think we're going to fix that in the next series. For now, let's just try resubmitting this. It should work properly. So if we check in the database, we should have that user inserted correctly into the database. So we always need our primary keys. We always need our primary keys to auto increment. We always need them to auto increment. So what we're going to do is, I think that error, we're going to fix it. We are going to, or we just do it here. So basically this button just needed to be clicked and then save this. That should fix the problem that we were having. So let's try reinserting another user into the database. So we can try this. It should work. It has worked. The primary key was not auto incrementing, it was duplicating. So after this, we should see two users have been inserted into the database. So we don't need people to be like to have the same email, the same password, etc. We're going to show you how to validate. I'm going to show you how to validate, how to check if the user does already exist in the database. So we're going to check if the email already exists in the database, because we need everyone's email to be unique to them, because maybe they want to forget their password, so they need to reset their password. So we're going to check that in the next video, but in this video we were just dealing on inserting. So one more thing that I'm supposed to help you guys in part one is, say we don't we want to hash our password. So we can say that dollar sign, say, hashed password. So we're going to use the password hash, which is the default in PHP. In JavaScript, if you're using something like Node.js, you can use bcrypt, but here we're going to use password hash. So password hash is the default hashing. So after this, you just take this variable right here. We just take this variable right here, and it's going to be inserted right here into the password field. So hashed password, and we save that. After saving that, let's try reinserting another user into the database. Sorry for that. Uh, sorry for that. So let me just go back to localhost, localhost slash user. Enter. So after this, we're just going to insert this guy into the database. Medallo submit. It's worked. After working, we go to the user details, and you can see the password is going to be just a bunch of nonsense. So we have dollar sign 2y etc. So that's the password for Medallo. So thank you very much for watching. If you've liked this tutorial, please like and subscribe for part 2, where we're going to do some validation, we're going to do etc, we're going to do the login and everything like that. So thank you very much for watching. Like and share this video. This is the first tutorial video that I've ever made. I'm not very good at the recording or editing, but I'm gonna improve as we go along. But I thought it best that we do tutorials. I start doing tutorials, and if viewers like it, then it's all good. So this is not going to be that great, but indeed, thank you for watching. The name's Comrade Susman, and have a great day.